Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting of March 3rd, 2025 to order. Thank you all for being here. Clerk, can we have a roll, please?
Councilmember Rennie?
Here.
Councilmember Hudas?
Here.
Councilmember Badami?
Here.
Vice Mayor Risto?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here. Thank you. We will begin with the best way we can start the meeting like this, which is with the Pledge of Allegiance from 4 wonderful young students. So we'll have Remy, Emma, Eva, and Mila, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on up. Oh, okay, you can come. Sorry, I wasn't. We spent so much time in the lobby and I didn't even tell you where to go. So while they're approaching, I'll just say that they are in LGCS Fast Pitch, and I'm sure they'll tell you all about that. But thank you very much for being here. We're so glad to have you. So do you want to say a few things before you start the Pledge of Allegiance?
I love Los Gatos so much and how they show up for kids' sports, especially girls softball. This is our biggest season in 6 years, and it's because of the amazing families and residents who support us. My grandpa was one of the founders of the league in 1992, and it's become it's because of all the families and residents who support us is why we still thrive today.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Does anyone else want to say something about Los Gatos, or are you good to go? Ready for the pledge? You're good. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And you're leading, so I'm going to give this right back to you. You're saying the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, well done, well done. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Thank you all very much. So really quick, I'm going to keep you for one more second. You can shake each of the council members' hands, and then the clerks will present you with a little gift. So you can maybe start over here with Councilmember Badami. I know lots of things. You did great. Very nice to meet you. Always wonderful to have our students in the community come out and start our meeting off on the right note. And I'll just put a plug in for families who are interested, or anyone. We like to have students lead the Pledge of Allegiance at every one of our meetings. So if there are any students in the community who want to do a future town council meeting, you can look up Pledge Leader Los Gatos and it comes right up. Perfect. Okay. So now on this meeting, I think we listed verbal before consent. Is that right, clerk?
Verbal was listed at the end of the agenda, so it should be moved up before the other business and after consent.
Got it. Okay, so we'll go to consent then. So items on the consent calendar are considered routine and generally non-controversial, and they will be approved in one motion. Are there any council members wanting to pull an item? Yes, Councilmember Hudas.
I understood we may hear item number 3 at a later time. Is that?
Yes, yeah. So item 3 was listed on tonight's agenda, but it's being removed. Unless there's any opposition, it'll be rescheduled to a future meeting, as long as that's okay with the council. Okay, perfect. Yes.
I had a question about item number 4.
Go ahead.
So part of the work plan is to potentially work on a new tagline for the town. And so I'm wondering, what is the current tagline? Does anyone know? I kind of looked on the website and I saw something, but it seemed to relate more to town staff and operations relating to service. So I'm just trying to figure out where we are starting from on that.
Looks like our senior management analyst might have some thoughts on that. We'll give her 1 sec.
Thank you for that question. I'm Holly Young, Senior Management Analyst, and the town doesn't have a specific tagline. The one that we've used that's on the website is Small Town Service, Community Stewardship, and Future Focus. But the tagline that is referenced in the town DEI plan would not be to replace that on the website. It would be a separate statement that was specific to DEI. So the way that I would picture it is something that would be on the DEI website pages and potentially, in a common space like the council chambers or, at a lobby, something that says, everyone is welcome here or you all belong. There's similar things that, are popping up in doctors' offices and that type of thing. So that is the way that I see that item in the DEI plan.
Okay, if I could just follow up on that, then if that work plan were accomplished and there were a recommendation, what would the process be for adopting that tagline? Would it go through other commissions, such as Community Health and Senior Services, or through planning or other commissions, or would it just be a straight recommendation from DEI to the council? Would the council have to approve that tagline?
Thank you for the question. The tagline would absolutely need to be approved by the council ultimately. In the DEI plan, there is an element of community outreach that is referenced. So, maybe something like a survey, different options to gather community outreach. If it's something that the council desired to go to other commissions, I think that's definitely something that the commission could do.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful because if DEI Commission pursues this in their work plan and their work, we want to make clear what the rest of the process is to the DEI Commission, so that they don't, necessarily think that it's been adopted without because there are other perspectives other than DEI on what the tagline should be. Safety, things, prosperity, other kinds of things.
Yes, please.
Katie Namura, Assistant Town Manager. Thank you for this clarification and discussion. This item came from the DEI plan, and so staff kind of went through and was trying to evaluate, okay, what items can we take on potentially this year, propose those to the DEI Commission. This was one of those items. In the DEI plan, it contemplates kind of like a DEI type of inclusive tagline. So that is the center and focus of this tagline. As staff contemplated workload and all those other items, we did not anticipate going to many different commissions. We were just going to go to the DEI Commission. They would make a recommendation, obviously working with staff. Staff would conduct outreach, which of course any commissioner could participate in and ultimately would need to go before the council for final approval.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I don't have any other questions.
Great. Any others? Okay, great. We do have a few comments on consent. So members of the public may speak. We have 4 items on consent. Members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar as a whole. So you get 1 3-minute allocation per the consent calendar. Our first speaker is Nimai Kumar.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Nimai Kumar, Community Relations Liaison for Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting, otherwise known as SASE. Before speaking directly to the DEI Commission work plan, I would like to briefly acknowledge two issues that are top of mind for older adults in Los Gatos. First, senior nutrition. There has been a disruption involving the Second Harvest distribution site serving local seniors. For older adults living on fixed incomes, food access is not theoretical. It is monthly budgeting, trade-offs, and stability. SASE is exploring the option of stepping in as a replacement distribution site so service can continue with limited interruption. Our goal is to prevent gaps and maintain food security for older residents of Los Gatos who may be impacted by the discontinuation of this critical program. Second, transportation. There has been discussion around the very real possibility that the county will cut all funding for RIDE in the upcoming budget, resulting in elimination of this much needed and heavily used service. While no permanent cuts have been announced yet, SASE is preparing a sustainability framework so that seniors who rely on this service for daily trips to the grocery store or doctor's appointments can avoid returning to the isolated state they were in before they had access to RIDE. As the realities come more into focus, our CEO, Tyler Taylor, will present to the town with our plans in full. With that context, I'm here to discuss the 2026 DEI Commission work plan and offer one perspective that is sometimes underemphasized in DEI conversations unless it is named directly: older adults. Age is not just a demographic category. It shapes mobility, income security, digital access, caregiving roles, and vulnerability to isolation. Age also intersects with disability, language access needs, race, housing stability, and health status. In other words, when we talk about equity, we are already talking about older adults, whether we say it explicitly or not. In Los Gatos, older adults represent a substantial and growing share of the community. They are not a peripheral group. They are a defining part of this town's present and future. As the Commission moves forward, reviewing events, communications, engagement practices, and partnerships, I encourage the town to treat age as a primary inclusion lens, not simply a secondary mention. That means asking consistently, are older adults at the table? Are participation structures accessible? Are we designing systems with aging in mind? SASE is ready to help with that work, whether through outreach via our Outlook newspaper, Insight, or facilitating dialogue. Thank you for your time and the continued commitment for building a community where belonging includes every stage of life. I appreciate your time.
Yes, Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for everything that SASE does for older adults in our community. The concern that you raised about the food nutrition program, I'm wondering if you've had a chance to discuss this with our Community Health and Senior Services Commission. I was at the last meeting. I don't recall that coming up, but I think it's fairly recent news, right?
Yeah, it's fairly recent, and we're still very much in the process of exploring the options alongside Second Harvest, but there's no formal contract or anything of that sort thus far.
Okay. So would you be willing to maybe make some comments at the next Community Health and Senior Services Commission meeting? It's on March 26th at 4 p.m.
Most definitely. I'll add it to my calendar.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brown Act.
Okay, I had a whole bunch of stuff that was listed, so I have to redo my brain. So 5, you're saying this is to be pulled, and is because it's on. So that's after verbal now. Number 5, the review, and because I had a whole thing on that one. But,
Number 5 is on the regular agenda.
okay, so 3 people spoke at the last on 217. 2 members spoke twice, me and Karen, I meant. And concerns is, it's members of the public, let's see, concerns with minutes, with Karen, with integrity issues, because, there are some integrity, because she's saying I can't speak well, and I can't speak well. I'm not a public speaker. But I tried to say, hey, there's some fishy stuff going on. And the only one person that spoke on ICE was Bern He's here tonight. He looks like he's going to do the same thing. So I think that'll be pulled. Number 3 was the 210 meeting. 4 people showed up. Again, Karen was, she was one of the 4 people that spoke up. She waited till last, no, she actually zoomed in because she didn't want, she said that you guys talked too much, and it was like 3 hours into it, and she came back and zoomed in. And I looked at the tapes from last year, and she zoomed in on that one too. So I think she wants to, try to muzzle you from talking a lot. And then number 4 was DEI. I went to a DEI meeting, and they don't have any funds. And I don't know if that's on there, but they say you got pulled funds. They don't have any publicity and stuff like that. So you have to help them out. And with, I said something about reconsidering. I'm trying to get you to reconsider number 5 that was about the Loma Street flood. I sent you in supplemental material. I live close by there. I drove that street a lot. When I looked at the footage was on March 21st, 2023. It was a flood down there because because the storm drain got backed up. They fixed the problem. If you go back there, that's a lot of money. $147,000 is throwing it away for an assessment that doesn't need it. And I want you to try to reconsider that, because that's important for the town. It's, I'd rather see that go to DEI and other commissions, split it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar? Yes, Vice Mayor Stowe.
Yeah, I move to approve items 1, 2, and 4, recognizing that item 3 will be heard at another time.
Great. Councilmember Udis.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Okay. We will now move to verbal communications, which is a time for members of the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. I have a number of speaker cards here, so we will jump right into it. Our first speaker is Rich Stevens. Rich will be followed by Eric Muller.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Risto, and council members. This is a little bit different. Unfortunately, there's somebody missing here who is this going to be addressed to, but I don't want to give details because I believe there's an ongoing investigation. But I witnessed something very sweet and warm, and I wanted to pass that on. Last week, there was a police incident in Los Gatos that involved multiple agencies from, I think there was 5 different agencies. And it was quite amazing to watch. Everyone's fine, but there was a young boy that was quite traumatized by it. And yesterday, I saw what I believe was something extremely special. There were probably 5 officers, 2 cars, a motorcycle officer, and a number of other support people that had come and visited the boy. And there was a drone in the air. They were showing him all kinds of good things. Lights were flashing. Everything was just all about making him feel special. And I just wanted to thank the town, the police force, Chief Field, and everybody else involved that made this happen, because these are the types of things that I personally love to see in Los Gatos, and which is why I've been here all my life. So again, not directly at the council, but a thank you to everybody, including Chief Field. And unfortunately, she's not here, but hopefully somebody passes this on. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Eric, and Eric will be followed by Burr Nissen.
Hello, Council. I'm Eric Muller. This is a comment to encourage you guys to get the question of resolving or having a statement how the town might handle ICE if they are perhaps coming to town. So I just have a couple remarks. There is a certain view that this matter is already resolved because California and Santa Clara County have both declared they will not cooperate with ICE agents, and this is codified into state law and local ordinances. This is my understanding, at least, which prohibit state and local law enforcement from using personnel or funds to assist with federal immigration enforcement. However, state and county laws do not prevent land owned by individual cities like Los Gatos from being used to stage deportation raids. That's why several of our neighboring towns have voiced their support by adopting their own ICE-free zone ordinances. San Jose, the city of Santa Clara, and Mountain View are notable examples, but I believe Palo Alto, Campbell, Sunnyvale, Milpitas, Morgan Hill, and Gilroy have also made it clear that assisting with ICE activities is outside the city's purview. I appreciate that there are strong views on various sides of this issue. I think what myself and some people here today are saying is give discussion a chance, meaning add it to the agenda to discuss. My hope is that we in Los Gatos can calmly share our perspectives, and ideally the town can pass a simple resolution similar to what our neighboring towns have done. I know that many who favor, many who favor aggressive deportation nevertheless still do believe that all people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And those of us who strongly disapprove of the tactics being used by ICE and the Border Patrol in some cases, it's not that we believe that or wish that there were open borders. We just want to register our shock at the tactics being used, and we want to stand in solidarity with those most vulnerable among us. And so I'll just say one more thing. I was kind of trying to figure out this issue a little bit, and I thought it was interesting that it's our 250th anniversary, in the Declaration of Independence, one of the grievances that was laid against King George III was that the founders wanted more immigrants, not less. And in their words, in the Declaration, they said to King George has endeavored to prevent the population of the states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass other laws to encourage their migration hither. So anyhow, we are a nation of immigrants. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to Bern Nissen, who will be followed by Sue Ann Lorig.
Ms. Risto, Ms. Bandami, Mr. Udis, and Mr. Moore, and Mr. Rennie. I thank you for your service, and unless you live in a bubble, would you not agree that no matter your politics, to the majority of Americans, our democracy is in trouble? So what should we as citizens do? Stick our heads in the sand or take a stand? Let me be specific. The treatment of illegal immigrants by ICE has been horrific. Not all are rapists or felons, as Trump would like to attest. I can carry a poster and silently protest. You can, as elected officials, rule that ICE not stage or operate on property that belongs to the town. This might help to bring the actions of ICE down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go to Sue Ann Lorig, who will be followed by Nigel Chandler.
Hello, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Risto, and Council. I'm Sue Ann Lorig and a resident of Los Gatos. I am horrified by the documented acts of federal immigration authorities across the country where masked federal agents have apprehended and abducted people without identification, reading them rights, or even telling them why or what is happening. They've jailed them or taken them to concentration camps across the country, or even to countries where they've never lived and don't even speak the language or have family or contacts. They've done so violently and brutally, killing people, even taking babies, children, elderly people, disabled people, U.S. citizens, people on their way to or leaving immigration hearings, people following the law. Yes, there are some that are undocumented here without following the law, but they've been taking everyone brutally. This is totally intolerable, and we must let it be known up front and be absolutely clear that we will not stand for such lawlessness and brutality here in Los Gatos. I'm here to ask you, Council, to take a clear stance that the town of Los Gatos, including the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police, will not cooperate with federal immigration authorities nor provide any resources to assist with federal immigration enforcement efforts in any capacity. That includes prohibiting federal immigration agents from using town property as staging areas or operational bases to interrogate and abduct people in Los Gatos or neighboring areas. It is your duty as elected officials to actively protect the constitutional rights of residents and visitors, including the rights to due process, free speech, and freedom of assembly. And I would really like to hear from you that you have a clear policy that you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Nigel Chandler, who will be followed by Kathy Mattingly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nigel Chandler. Today, I am not speaking in my capacity as a Complete Streets and Transportation Commissioner, but as a resident of Los Gatos. I can see today that there are many people who have come to show the Town Council we care about its position on ICE activity in our area. Mountain View and the Santa Clara County level government have acted to disable their flock camera systems. So too has San Jose banned ICE from using its public property for ICE activity. I believe it is essential that we at least stand in solidarity with the rest of the towns in our region. To illustrate why, I would like to tell a small story. In 1953, a Jewish-American journalist and author, Milton Mayer, visited West Germany to interview ordinary Germans that lived through the Nazi dictatorship. In the book he wrote about the experience, called They Thought They Were Free, he interviewed a chemical engineer who had used his position in the Nazi Party to shelter hundreds of Jews before he was imprisoned by the party in 1943. When the journalist asked what exactly went wrong in Germany, in his opinion, the engineer said, "One day, in 1935, a law was passed that required me to take an oath of fidelity. I said I would not. I was given 24 hours to think it over. And in those 24 hours, I lost the world." The journalist said, "Are you saying it was a mistake to take the oath?" The engineer replied, "Yes." The journalist said, "By taking the oath, you saved hundreds of lives later on, which you could not have done if you refused to take the oath in 1935. The engineer replied, "Yes." The journalist said, I don't understand. And the engineer replied, "Maybe you don't. You must not forget that you are an American and that you have never known anything like this experience. My point is that if I had refused to take the oath of fidelity, I would have saved not just the few hundred, but the millions. The fact that I was not prepared to resist in 1935 meant that all the thousands, the hundreds of thousands of men like me in Germany were also unprepared, and each one of these were, like me, men of great potential and great influence. And thus the world was lost. These 100 I saved, or 1,000 or 10,000, however many you suppose, what do they represent? A little something out of the whole terrible evil, when if my faith had been strong enough in 1935, I could have prevented the whole evil. In those 24 hours, my faith failed me. Over the next 10 years, I was able to remove only anthills, not mountains. The takeaway here, then, is that it is essential to stand in solidarity with others. I hope that this story might resonate with you tonight in light of the current moment in our country. I would implore the council to stand together with the rest of the Bay Area to, if nothing else, set the example that allows our residents to feel safe in expressing their dissent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy Mattingly, who will be followed by Ali Miano.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Kathy Mattingly. I'm here with Los Gatos Anti-Racism Coalition. And speaking about ICE, as others have done, to me, the importance is that we cannot uphold law and order by meeting administrative lapses with violence, deliberately cruel enforcement, violations of the Bill of Rights, public displays of federal force in peaceful communities where crime is on the decrease, and extrajudicial killings. All of these and other crimes are occurring whenever ICE and Border Patrol officers increase their presence. Rather than acting outside the scope of town governance, joining with other Santa Clara entities in standing up against federal lawlessness is essential local action to stand up for our neighbors who live, work, shop, and go to school in our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll go to Ali Miano, who will be followed by Joe Enns.
Thank you for taking my comment. I'm sorry I wasn't able to prepare any comments as my colleagues in the Los Gatos Anti-Racism Coalition. You've heard a lot of eloquent pleas, but I would just like to underline what they have said and ask that Los Gatos not cooperate with ICE. And as well, why not declare ourselves a sanctuary town? Just not cooperate, not provide any of our property, not do, and not use the flock cameras, etc. Get out of the business of terrorizing people who are just coming here to contribute, to work hard. You see them working in our gardens, walk down any street in Los Gatos. They're here every day. So let's protect them and show them the gratitude that they deserve. And since I have the mic, I promise not to take all 3 minutes, but I would also like to see our council come out against the war. I feel like, I'm sure many of you do, that our country is crumbling beneath our feet. And we need to stand up and take a stand against all the craziness that's going on and all the havoc from Venezuela to Iran that is going on. This is not the way for a country to behave. And so I ask you to please use your voice, which is slightly louder than mine, to stand up for what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Joe Enns. Joe Enns will be followed by Captain Seuss.
First and community activist. I guess I can say that now, other than Friends of Los Gatos Creek. The homes are experiencing their problems as usual. There's been problems, and they're probably going to have to move away from the high school, which I don't know why they all congregate in one place. That's never good, and somebody's a veteran, and I've got to run and help this person with a doctor. I'm going out there to take care of this person from the VA, because for whatever reason, he's scared, and I understand all the PTSD issues of not being able to accept care that's offered to you. And the problem is this person, and he's the guy that got in a tree when there was floods a while back ago, staff actor, not doing anything to help himself. I get that. I got degrees in psych. I'm a certified EMT, not right now. So I get all that stuff, even though, I've had problems. But he's probably going to have to be removed. And then I've got an appointment to deal with the physician to go out there on Friday. Well, he's made another appointment because, the whole rebellious stuff or whatever. And he's kind of almost got to be dealt with because all the bad things are happening in his camp all the time. And he just allows anybody there, and all substances, drinking, whatever, Oh, but he's cleaning it over. That's just what is going on, you know? So I'm working with the police as best I can, you know, and they got to do what they've got to do. I'm trying to help as best I can, and thank you for letting me help.
Thank you. We'll go to Captain Seuss, who will be followed by Jeff Suzuki.
Okay, Iran war. That's a major topic right now. I sent you in a picture. I give you 3 pictures. Let's see. Picture I brought up at 2:17:26 about the Iran war, and I flashed this paper. I brought the 2 pictures to the CHSSC Commission on February 26th, and this paper. And number 2 was a prayer. If one side, this is Tulsi Gabbard, one side's praying to, for the State of the Union, and it's listening to, my stance on this is coming in as a prophetic dreamer and stuff like that. And, they're just listening to Mr. 666. And, I also brought up to the thing, people fighting back with snowballs. And that's, something that kids, I tried to turn in an email. It got sent back at 3 for that thing, and it had the picture of the kids. I don't know if that was in front of Safeway on Union, and they're kids on a light pole, and the town. I mean, you guys. Hopefully you saw this, but a lot of people haven't. And kids are to get involved, and they're to get in trouble, and they're to get hurt. And I'm trying to prevent some of that. So, and I wish that you guys would not pass this message along instead of sending it back and nobody knowing about it. Let's see. I also wanted to bring up on biblical prophecies. Revelation 6:12, Acts 2:20, and Joel 2:31 about the blood moon, and Purim. I'm not the Purim for the Jewish thing. That's all related. The 6th seal, technically online. There's a lot of stuff going on with saying, hey, this is the 6th seal being broken. I also want to bring up, reconsider the storm drain that I brought up earlier. That's a lot of money. Project North 40 Phase 2, the traffic stuff that I wanted to bring up. Also, I've been into the sports and it's March Madness. I had some basketballs and stuff like that, but hey, March Madness, let's go, go, go. And I like to bring flowers and just place them, because this is a town. I know you guys, me and you guys are not on the same page a lot of times. Some things we are on, some things we're not. And that's it. Thank you.
You. We'll go to Jeff Suzuki, and our last card is from Jason J.
Good evening, council members. First, I'll start out by saying that I am not speaking in my capacity as a Complete Streets and Transportation Commissioner, but as the president of the Los Gatos Anti-Racism Coalition, and also as a private resident. You cannot remain neutral on a moving train. The word authoritarianism is often just thrown around, as a kind of buzzword whenever the government does something that is forceful or something that we might disagree with. But what authoritarianism really is when we see people subject to the iron fist of the state and have their lives snuffed out, and the average person, perhaps the average local government official, looks at that and says, that's not my problem. I don't see what sort of thing I could say. I don't have any role in that. And if we all think that way, we've lost. That is when democracy dies. I think about how eminently unreasonable the position that federal immigration agencies could make our town any safer. I think about undocumented immigrants who have been killed, like Severio Villegas Gonzalez, who was shot in the neck, Keith Porter, who was killed under mysterious circumstances and has had no meaningful investigation into his death, Renee Nicole Good, who was shot and was left bleeding in her car for 8 minutes until she died, Alex Preddy, who was gunned down in broad daylight, and Linda Davis, who was killed in a car collision as a result of a chase that ICE started. I would like our town to pledge that we will not cooperate or provide any resources to assist with federal immigration enforcement. I don't want our town property to be used as staging areas or operational bases to abduct people in our own town or in our neighboring cities. And I would like you to actively commit to protecting the constitutional rights of your residents and visitors as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final card in person is for Jason J.
Mayor Moore, Town Attorney Whelan, and members of the council, I'm here to place this body on constructive notice regarding the severe municipal liability Los Gatos currently carries by refusing to codify a non-cooperation policy with the federal immigration enforcement. Because ICE detainers are voluntary requests and not judicial warrants, any use of town resources, including facilities, personnel, databases to facilitate seizure constitutes a warrantless arrest. Therefore, by exposing the town to direct liability for Fourth Amendment violations. When these resources lead to the seizure of a U.S. citizen, an unlawful interstate transfer, the town becomes a proximate cause of deprivation of liberty without due process. In California, this is a direct conflict with the California Values Act, SB 54. Under the doctrine of negligence per se, the town would be found liable by default in a civil suit, as any informal cooperation with federal agents absent a formal ordinance constitutes a de facto violation of state law. We are talking about multi-million-dollar settlements for false imprisonments under the color of law that cost our general fund and insurance will likely bear alone. I'm submitting a formal notice of liability for the public record today. On what specific date will this council place a resolution on the agenda to codify our non-cooperation policy and insulate Los Gatos taxpayers from these predictable liabilities? I'm not here to ask for your permission to be protected. I'm here to ensure that when the bill comes, when the bill arrives, the record will show that you were given every opportunity to prevent it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final card in person. I have no hands raised on Zoom. I'll give it 1 sec. Seeing none, I will close verbal communications, and thank you all for being here. We'll now move to other business. We have just one item on the agenda, which is review and provide direction on the meeting minute format. And our town clerk, Wendy Wood, will present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Wendy Wood, Town Clerk. This evening is before you, the item before you is to review the town's meeting minute format and provide direction on the format. As noted in the staff report, the policy committee reviewed this matter and is recommending the council reaffirm the use of action-only minutes with the format that only identifies speakers and does not summarize the remarks. To provide background, Council has discussed the style of minutes on several occasions. In 2001, Council adopted a resolution formally adopting action-only minutes as the preferred format for the Town Council meetings. The resolution stated that speakers' comments during public hearing items would include a brief summary and did not provide direction to summarize comments on other agenda items or verbal communications. Over time, the town's practice strayed from the adopted resolution. The minutes began reflecting summarized public comment on all agenda items, as well as council and staff discussion, going beyond what was stated in the resolution. This prompted a further review of the minute format in 2007. At that time, the council discussed the minute format being used and directed staff to explore better ways to capture the essence of the discussion in the most efficient manner. No official action was taken, and there was no changes proposed to the resolution. In 2013, the council conducted another review of the minute format, recognizing that the minutes included an expanded summary that was time-consuming for staff to prepare and introduced subjectivity in interpreting and paraphrasing remarks. At that time, council took action to transition back to action-only minutes to refocus the record to the official actions and direction, reducing staff workload and acknowledging the public video and audio recordings were available and provided the complete verbatim record of the meeting. This action included direction to identify speakers and listing their topics in their comments, with a clarification that the topic of the comments include the speaker's position on a matter, whether it was in favor or against, and did not include a summary of the speaker's comments. However, there was no change to the resolution. In 2013, the current minute format despite the direction in 2013, the current minute format continued to summarize public comment for the agenda items and verbal communications. This approach exceeded both the required outlined in the 2001 resolution, which limited summaries to public hearings, and directed in the direction in 2013. As a result, it's necessary to evaluate the current minute format and consider if it should be modified or align with the adopted resolution. In reviewing the current format, the policy committee considered several key factors, including ensuring compliance with legal requirements, maintaining transparency, preserving the clarity and accuracy of the official record, and utilizing staff resources efficiently. Legislative bodies are only required to record the action of the votes taken. Action minutes focus on documenting the decision and direction, with the full video and audio recording providing a complete record of all the remarks. The practice of summarizing public comment introduces subjectivity and requires several hours of staff time per meeting for preparation and review, while offering limited additional benefit since the verbatim recording of the meeting is publicly available. The recommended change would better align with our practice in the intent of action-only minutes and allow staff time to be used more efficiently. Based on these factors, the policy committee recommends continuing the use of action-only minutes and modifying the current practice to identify public speakers only without summarizing their remarks. This approach keeps the official record focused on the decisions, votes, and directions to staff, making it easier for the public to understand the council's actions. It avoids subjectivity in summaries of public comments or discussions, ensuring that minutes reflect discussions accurately without interpretation or any unnecessary bias. Supports transparency with publicly available recordings, providing the complete unedited supplement of the official minutes. Improves efficiency by reducing staff time spent interpreting and summarizing remarks, allowing resources to be directed to other priorities, and aligns with common practices in surrounding cities. If council approves the committee's recommendation, staff will return with a revised resolution to rescind the prior action and clarify the minute format for all legislative bodies. As always, council retains the ability by a majority of vote to direct staff to prepare more detailed verbatim minutes for a particular meeting, such as a study session, or specific items such as a land development project. However, doing so would likely require the use of a transcription service or an AI tool, as accommodating the additional workload may be challenging for the current staff resources. As noted in the staff report, there was also an informal poll done for neighboring cities. And of those neighboring cities, all cities utilize action minutes, and they vary in terms of how they record the public comment. However, 7 of the 14 cities do list public comment names without summarizing for action items, and they vary in terms of verbal communication. And this concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Please, Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, thank you. I understand this came from a recommendation from the policy committee. Are there minutes of that policy committee meeting?
The minutes currently aren't available for that meeting yet. This just happened, the meeting happened last Tuesday.
Okay, and so did you summarize the actions in the staff report? Or the discussion or any of the rationale?
Correct. The recommendation is the recommendation that the committee provided.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up public comment. We have one speaker card from Gus Hu.
You already started, but I was at the meeting, so I will testify under oath when this does go to trial. And you guys are already underinsured by $30 million. You're probably $100 million. I object to this agenda item, changed at the last minute from minutes to, this was from minutes to an agenda item. When it wasn't posted, it's before verbal for a record. I got to put that on. I just put this in. I wrote that in, but I had this, typed up. I would like town council to poll number 5 and put it on an agenda item for the public to have a say in this subject matter. I believe this action can easily be construed as a power grab by the local government and administration, and possibly to cover up ongoing misconduct that is being brought to the light and should be investigated. I was at the 2/24/26 Council Policy Committee and provided supplemental material on this subject. Then to the flag policy. Members of the public have been faint voices for complaints for public at larger that have risen to higher things like ICE. And people, you see, I've been one of the first to speak out against ICE. And I'm not a public speaker, but you saw how many people have been speaking out. Such as ICE, in which this member of the public, me, is quoted as saying, about ICE and the current administration government, I have just various concerns, quote, quote. I'm not for or against ICE, but I'm just various concerns. When everybody else is speaking against ICE, there's no record of me saying ICE is, or Civil War or now World War. In such minutes. At such meetings, I learned from the mayor, it takes 4 to 6 hours a week for staff to capture by the public, these, and I had the 6 lines of, it takes 4 to 6 hours a week just to have 10 lines of what the public says. There's not that many people that speak here. This is one of the larger things, but there's like 3 or 4 people that speak, and it takes 4 to 6 hours a week to jot that down. I think that this is a lawsuit again, because you're not agendizing. You have to give people 10-day rule. Hey, put it in the paper. Say, hey, do we want our minutes reduced? This is a town, it's not a city. There's not that many people to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Quintana.
Good evening. I've spoken on this issue many times before. Excuse me, I support transparency in government. Currently, what is being suggested would reduce transparency in government. We would gain efficiency and lose transparency of people being able to understand what's going on in our town, particularly on the motions that are stated by both planning commissioners and council people and other committees and commissions. In my opinion, having heard other jurisdictions and in the past Los Gatos having much, much better motions made so that you actually understand by reading the motion what is being approved, that it doesn't just refer back to the staff report for the findings and doesn't refer back to the staff report for various other things, which causes you have to want to understand what actually went on and what was approved. You need to go back to the audio. And at the very least, if you're going to do this, and I pray that you won't, you need to indicate the time period on the minutes that the motion was made so somebody can go back and listen to just that section that they want to without sacrificing individual efficiency for transparency.
Thank you. There are no other hands in person, and it looks like you do have a question, Ms.
Yeah,
Quintana.
I actually have a question for the speaker, Ms. Quintana. Sorry. It sounds like you're bringing up two different points, that one that could be solved in one way but wouldn't be solved by more extensive minutes. I mean, one of the comments you made that I can understand is that sometimes motions are made that refer back to a staff report. So one cure for that would be to ask the council to make more extensive motions, because even with verbatim minutes, you would still hear a motion that refers back to something that you would have to then look up. So can you pull that apart, how that relates to this policy, or are you talking about a practice?
Well, it sort of comes together, because if you have action minutes that don't give you that information, then the public isn't being informed at all. They can't even tell whether they're interested in knowing more about something when the motion is just approved as stated in the staff report. And findings aren't iterated. And so you really don't know what is being approved, or a statement can be made, the changes as stated by the commissioner or the council in the discussion. You don't know what that motion really is.
Okay.
And so I think it's both, to me, it's a question of much better motion making, which when I first started coming.
No, I understand what you're saying. Thank you. Okay. So it's an action in
But
addition to.
but it's also a question of how an item is described in the first place. And in things that involve land use, I think we could do a much, much better job in getting across what is actually before a
Okay,
commission
no,
or
thank you. You
council.
answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with no hands raised on Zoom, we will close public comment on these items and look to the council for questions or a motion. Yes, Vice Mayor Risto.
Thank you. I think I understand the difference, but I would like to ask staff, can you describe to me the difference between the recommendation and alternative number one? I'm trying to understand what would look different in the minutes.
So the recommendation by the committee was to list names only for all speakers and not summarize their comments. So that would be for verbal, consent, public hearing, and other business items. And the first recommendation would be to align our practice with what is stated in the adopted resolution, which says that we would summarize comments for public hearing items.
Okay, not verbal, but just public. I think what threw me was it says in there it would lessen staff workload and reduce the level of detail in the minutes. Are you saying compared to our present practice or compared to the recommendation?
Correct. So
Okay,
compared
not
to our
compared to the
current practice, so our
recommendation.
current practice would either the recommendation of council would be to go with the recommendation from the committee, or the first option would be to align with the resolution, which is not the current practice right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Badami?
Thank you. When we met, the mayor and I, it was my understanding, and it's here in the staff report, that action minutes are intended to document official actions taken by the legislative bodies, including motions, votes, and direction to staff. So wouldn't we continue to do that?
If I may add, and I think some of it was in the presentation, the council passed a resolution that would require only the documentation of public hearing items, the verbal communication, not the council's communication, not communication on other items. Our practice has been to do public comment for most of the matters, which is not in alignment with the 2001 resolution. And so the time savings is the time it takes the clerk to have to go back, review the video, try to figure out how to best summarize statements made by individuals on the areas that were not contemplated in that resolution.
I think Councilmember Badami was asking about specifically motions.
Yeah, because...
And this doesn't change anything about it.
It does not change the motions and the actions and the votes at all.
Okay, because Ms. Quintana brought up the fact that the minutes would not be clear, if they were changed, that the public wouldn't understand what the content of a motion was, but I don't think that there would be any change on that from our current practice.
No, and I think the clerk has done a great job improving upon the context around that motion when there's references to other documents, that she's actually adding language into the action minutes to demonstrate that, so it's cleaner.
Okay, that was my understanding. Thank you.
Town Clerk, did you want to add anything?
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify that action minutes do reflect the action taken by council. So that would be the motions. Our typical way that we record that is that we record all actions as close to verbatim as possible. And so in the minutes, you will see sometimes that we do bracketed items. So when there is a reference to a recommendation listed in the staff report, we'll add brackets denoting that that wasn't stated, but then it clarifies what that is, so that if a member of the public is reading the minutes, they'll know exactly what that recommendation is without having to go back to the report, which is something that I had to do when I was researching this, because the minutes did say as recommended in the staff report, and then I had to see if I could find the staff report to see what that recommendation actually was. So yeah, the action minutes do record the actual action taken.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hudis?
Yeah, I would like to maybe just comment that I think the minutes, the action minutes that we are being provided with now are an improvement and contain a lot more information. Some of the issues that Ms. Quintana raised, I think, are being clarified in our current action minutes. I understand that that the verbatim video is being offered as an alternative to summary minutes. The issue that I have with that is that I can't find stuff. When I try to understand in a 3-hour DEI commission when an item was discussed, I have to watch 3 hours of video or whatever it takes to come to that point. Same thing with Planning Commission, same thing with Community Health and Senior Services Commission. So is it possible, as Ms. Quintana noted, to timestamp the minutes when an action is taken, or to index or bookmark the video recording so that we can actually find things. And I'm not so much talking about the council meetings, but more about some of the other commission meetings.
Happy to answer that. Yes, for the council meetings, you will notice that we do index those items. We don't index when there's public comment. That would be another header we would have to add. So the way that we do the indexing after the meeting, it has to align with a header. So we have to timestamp that and attach that to each of those headers to denote when that item is being heard. In terms of the commissions are audio only recordings. We don't do Zoom recordings. So we don't have the capability of timestamping the audio recording. So that would be something, if council wished to pursue that, we would have to look at maybe some other equipment or some other services to look and see how we can timestamp that, or if they wanted to go with a Zoom as an option for viewing only, then we can add those timestamps in for those items. We could also denote in the minutes, but I can't speak towards the commissions if they have the capacity to review those items and for the audio and timestamp them in the minutes.
Just as a follow-up, so it sounds like there would be additional work to index or bookmark the video or audio recordings. Is that more work than creating summary minutes of those meetings?
Currently, for council meetings, we do index all of the meetings. Like I stated, that we just don't index if there's public comment or anything further other than when the item started for discussion. So that's a current practice that we already have that isn't necessarily that time consuming.
Okay, but I'm talking about the other commission meetings. Would it take more time to write summary minutes of those meetings, or more time to index the recording so that we could find when an item is discussed?
I think indexing would be much quicker. Like I said, summarizing comments is up to subjectivity, and then you have to try to pick apart what you think the intent is and what you think is important to summarize. But we would have to have the capacity or the capability to have the tools to timestamp those, because right now they're audio only, and we don't have that capability other than if you're listening and noting it possibly in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll look to the council for a motion. Councilmember Rennie.
As Rosenberg's rules say, we want a motion to discuss, so I'll go ahead and make the motion to support staff, or the policy committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Risto.
Thank you. I'll second. And then if I can ask a follow-up question of the clerk, when we're talking about time stamping, if you don't timestamp the audio, but the minutes just have the time marker in it for each item, I think that might be what Councilmember Hudice is asking for. That sounds simpler than trying to manipulate an audio file. I mean, which one is the hard thing?
I think the challenge, as Councilmember Hudice stated, is the audio recording, because there isn't anything that denotes when there's an item or when there's a public speaker. The audio is a little more difficult, and some of our commissions don't always state verbally when somebody is speaking or when somebody is moving to the next item or who is speaking. Sometimes they just start speaking out of turn and don't announce who's speaking, so it could be more challenging to determine when to timestamp those. But there are other avenues we could explore in terms of a video-only option, possibly.
Well, I mean, the other thing I was thinking of, just super simply, if you have an agenda for example, the Finance Commission, and there's 5 items, just in the minutes, where item 1 is just what time that was when that started on the audio. Item 2 comes, what time that was on the audio. The minutes would just state for each item where that was on there. Not anything more complicated than that, just so somebody knows how to parse it. If it's a 2-hour meeting, okay, I look at 1 hour and 45 minutes and I'm close. But I also agree with you. I try to remind commissioners, a lot of times they don't actually use the microphone. They speak out of turn. They don't get their name called. And when you're listening to it, it's really frustrating.
Correct, yeah. And I think that could be something that staff could do. I would have to reach out to the liaisons and just make sure that would be something that they have the ability to do.
Okay, that might be something we would return to at another time then. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudis?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to do that, but I guess the question is, aren't the recordings often made available well before the minutes are made available, like in the case of what we're talking about tonight?
Correct, yes. A lot of times the audio is uploaded the very next day, so people can hear that prior to the minutes, whereas if it's a monthly meeting for commissions, the draft minutes wouldn't be available to review until the agenda is posted before the next meeting.
Okay, I had another question.
Go ahead.
This is about study sessions. Under this policy, what would the minutes look like for a study session?
If it's the action only that's pursued, then it would be the same as the council meeting minutes, where it would just reflect the speakers' names that spoke and any action that was conveyed. So typically with study sessions, if there's direction to staff that's clearly a majority of the council, that would be reflected in the minutes, or any direct action of council. So any motions that are made would be reflected in the minutes.
Okay, so for instance, if we had an expert speaking about CEQA and provided some information, that information wouldn't be published. Is that correct?
Not with the action minute formats. So that would be available in the audio or video recording, or if a majority of council wished to have that summarized or a verbatim transcript, that would be something that the council could request.
So my understanding is that a study session, because there is no notice, there really can't be action taken. Is that correct? I mean, I think it says that right at the beginning of a study
I can
session.
jump in. So I think, for instance, there's an upcoming study session on objective design standards. And I think one outcome of that might be we would like staff to bring back an ordinance for our consideration that says X, Y, and Z. And so they're not taking action, but they are providing direction to staff on what product to bring back when a decision is made.
So if I could just follow up, I mean, wouldn't that be exactly the type of thing where the council is asking staff to expend effort that now requires a majority of the council to do? I mean, that's exactly the type of thing that was described as an action that would require now a council majority.
Yes, it would require a majority. And if I understood the town clerk correctly, providing that direction would be captured in the minutes.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually pose a question to the attorney. I know we refer to these meetings as study sessions and we use them for specific purposes, but isn't it actually just a special meeting? No different than a council meeting other than it not being the regular meeting?
No, study sessions mean that no action is taken because it's to get opinions from the decision makers to direct the further work of staff.
Under the Brown Act, it defines it as a study session, not a special meeting.
The Brown Act defines special meetings. A study session isn't a term that's covered in the Brown Act, but the common practice is to have it that no action is taken at study sessions.
I know in terms of how we utilize it, but my understanding is at any meeting the council that's agendized can take an action. So while we call it a study session, it is our practice not to have it as actions, but that doesn't forestall the council from having actions that they could take, right?
Well, whatever potential actions are possible would need to be accurately captured in the agenda's description. And so, as you know, typically it would say provide direction to staff on the following topic. If it were to say, vote on a potential ordinance, that would require a public hearing notice.
Right.
And so there'd be much stricter notice requirements.
So I guess where I'm getting at is for the council, it really is about the intent of what you're trying to accomplish. And so if we're walking into a meeting and having a general conversation that eventually leads to some direction, the council can ask for more detailed descriptions and minutes of that specific meeting if there's a value to what's coming out of there. If it's leading up to, I move, there's a second to give direction to staff to come back with an ordinance that could be evaluated in public, that action will be documented in the minutes of that, quote, study session because it's still a agendized meeting of the council. And so I think the crux of this is you have to ask the question, what are their minutes intending to do for the council? And then when you want to adjust from that, you at any time can give direction to staff to go from absolute verbatim or back off to summaries or just action only.
Vice Mayor Risto.
Yeah, the other comment I was going to make is certainly coming out of some study sessions, we've had staff put out FAQs afterward. And so, given a study session where we might have experts or other people speak, and then there's a bunch of questions that come from the council and the public, those questions and answers at council direction are published, correct? Plus, we have the video.
It was what was requested. So it depends. When we went through the CEQA discussion, because I think that was the one that was presented, was the intent was it would be nice to have question answers because the topic of CEQA comes up frequently across multiple developments. So absolutely, that was the right request by the council. It made sense. We spend the time to do that. On a different study session, just as a hypothetical, we may have a conversation about strategic priorities, and it could be a 5-hour conversation with 100 residents that are speaking to that. You may choose to take a different action on how you want to document that based on what had occurred or what the topic was. So what we're just trying to say is just because we go action only doesn't mean you can't do more. And in today's age, we have video where in the past, we didn't have that for somebody to go back and be able to see everything that occurred. They really only relied on the minutes. And if you go further back, you didn't even have staff reports that would be available many years later to go back and understand, well, what was the context of the conversation?
Go ahead.
So in the spirit of Rosenberg, I'd like to offer an amendment so we can continue the discussion of this. And I would ask to amend the motion with the following language that says, except for non-actionable public meetings such as study sessions for which summary minutes or FAQs shall be provided. And that would, to amend the recommendation from the policy committee.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Risto.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it's unnecessary because at any meeting, we can always make a request. At any study session, we can make a request for extra information. I just think going action only makes sense. And then when we have a study session, we can ask for more. Nothing about this policy precludes council from asking more. And I don't know that, it almost sounds like from your statement, then always with every study session, there's going to be extra information coming out. And every study session might not meet that criteria.
There's a motion without a second, the amendment. Oh,
I have a question for staff.
yeah, please.
So when I look at the resolution that would be brought back and the wording, it says, number B, so as to clarify the record of public hearing items. Is a study session considered a public hearing?
So it's a public meeting, but then public hearings, the technical definition is a hearing that was required to have public notice per the government code. And so it would be, examples of that would be like formation of a landscape assessment district, or putting something on the ballot, or making a land use decision. All of those have special public notice requirements in the state law. And so technically, those are what are considered public hearings.
So that being said, with the friendly amendment by Councilmember Hudes, if that was to carry, would that be something that would be modified in the resolution if it was the will of the council to pass it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion fails for lack. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I just clarify what I stated?
Sure.
So it says, except for non-actionable public meetings such as study sessions for which summary minutes or FAQs shall be provided. So it doesn't specify summary minutes, which I recognize would be cumbersome for something like the strategic priority session. And I would just add a comment to this, is that we put a lot of time, money, and effort into these study sessions, including paying experts to attend. And this is where I have more of an issue. It's not with action minutes for our normal meetings. It's when we've gone to great effort to have a study session, and then there's no action taken because no action can be taken at a study session, according to the town attorney. And there will be nothing. There'll be no record of this, which I don't think benefits transparency.
Yes, Councilmember Badami.
I don't know if this should be through the mayor or for the town manager or town attorney to answer, but with the amendment, that's not a substitute motion. That's an amendment that you're looking for Councilmember Rennie to accept as an amendment to his motion.
I'm not clear on whether it's a friendly amendment that would require that, or would require someone else seconding. I don't know.
My understanding is under Rosenberg's, if it's a friendly amendment, the maker of the motion would need to accept it. And then the alternative would be to propose an alternative motion.
Oh, I thought there was a procedure for an amendment to a motion.
There's an informal, so as we did the presentation, there's an informal, so you made a request and it could be accepted informally by the maker and the seconder. You can make, the chair can choose to take that informal and make it a formal amendment for which the council can consider amending that. Or you can just restate the entire motion as a substitute motion, which is the most formal action, and that would take precedence over the existing motion.
Yes, Councilmember Rennie.
So he did request it as an amendment, so I should be responding and never really
Please
got
respond,
a chance to jump
Councilmember
into
Rennie.
all of that. I'm kind of favorable to the idea, but I'm concerned about, again, whether we want staff to go through all the trouble for every study session. I think it makes sense for FAQs for a lot of study sessions. I personally think we have more study sessions than we need. I mean, there's some that I don't think we should have even had. And then to make staff do FAQs on a study session I didn't think was necessary just feels like even more work. So I'm hesitant to take it the way it was written. If there's some way that then maybe council will decide at each study session whether FAQs are needed or not. Maybe some that way it's, there's a decision point in the future.
So it sounds like you do not accept the
So
amendment at this
I don't
time.
want to accept it as stated, but I'm somewhat favorable to the idea.
Okay. Vice Mayor Risto.
Thank you. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, given the use of the word shall, it suddenly requires any study session we have, no matter what the topic is, whether there's experts or not, is going to require staff to have to either do summary minutes or FAQ, when in fact, without that part of the motion, any meeting we have, we can request by a majority direct staff to create FAQ or summary minutes or something, right? We always have that right. This policy would not preclude us from asking for more from a specific meeting. Is that true?
Correct. What we try to do is make sure we have either a video or an audio, which is the foundation for anything that the council may ask for.
So while I appreciate the spirit of the amendment, I think it's potentially overkill and at the least unnecessary.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in with my thoughts. When the policy committee discussed this, a big part of the impetus was the fact that, was the learning that it takes several hours, to go through the minutes. And part of the discussion at the policy committee too is I looked through several of our previous meeting minutes, and to summarize, I never really thought about this, but to summarize a comment from a 3-minute public comment from a speaker into one sentence is actually a rather difficult task. I don't know how I would often do that, especially when speakers may talk about a variety of things and it's not clear if they support or oppose. And so I think it puts our staff in an uncomfortable position, especially when for council meetings, in my opinion, the best way to understand what went on at the meeting is to go watch the recording. And especially for, council meetings, when the comments say something like the speaker, if a speaker gives, their perspective on 10 different things and that necessitates the summary reading, the speaker spoke on various items, that's not useful, but it still required staff to sit down, listen to that 3-minute comment, could try to think about how to put it together, decide, it's too tough, and then go to the next one. All to say, my interest here is to reduce the amount of staff work, and so I don't think that requiring FAQs or summaries on all study sessions is a good move in that direction. I going back to the sort of the topic this evening, I like the idea of just listing speakers' names rather than listing their comments. I think that would save staff several hours per meeting, and I think that's a meaningful difference to a town clerk's department that has many, many things on their plate. And so I think I want to couch this in the. I think the goal should be to reduce staff time. Yes, Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree that reducing the work of staff to summarize speakers' comments for normal decisions in the council makes sense. So I agree with that. But I would say that from my perspective, there's not just one goal of reducing staff time. There's another goal of providing transparency for the public and for the public to be able to understand what's going on in meetings. And so, when I look at this, I say, okay, the objective of this is to reduce staff time, but what is the objective with regard to our public? And so I have another thought, having heard the comments, and have a different amendment. Basically to say, except for non-actionable public meetings, such as study sessions for which summary minutes or FAQs may be provided, and this will be discussed and decided at the meeting. And the reason I added that is that I think it's easy for me as a council member to forget to ask about that, and I would appreciate a prompt in the staff report or from the clerk about, do you want to have an FAQ, or do you want to have any record of this, and then have the council discuss it and have a majority vote on that.
Councilmember Rennie?
The way that was stated, I agree with it. I think it's a good idea to have a reminder, but have it decided at that meeting so we can decide whether it's worth the extra effort. So I would accept that. I'm also thinking about another amendment to my motion, but maybe you want to check on the seconder on that one before I go to that.
Okay, the seconder accepts the president-friendly amendment.
All right. Back to you.
Excuse me. I'm getting over a cold. Still got a little something there in the chest. It was discussed, so we are taking some work off of staff by not having them to try to go through the subjectivity of summarizing speakers' comments, which I worry a lot about because it is very subjective, and you can get people go, well, that's not what I meant. Well, you know, nobody's going to be perfect at that. So I'm kind of glad that we're getting away from this, you know, too much possible trouble because of trying to not be subjective, but something is subjective. I think, as Councilmember Hudes mentioned earlier, the idea of timestamps, it sounded like it was not going to be much extra effort from staff to put in timestamps because they've got to read through it anyway. That maybe we want, that was not part of the motion and is not in the suggestion, that maybe we want to add something about timestamps. Do we want timestamps at each speaker or just timestamps at each motion? So I think we should add maybe something like that to the motion, but I'm looking for a suggestion on exactly what you think would work.
I think what I heard from the town clerk is, especially for commissions, we would want to check with the liaisons. So perhaps that can be, this will have to come back to the council regardless. So I think maybe that could be, you know, staff could check with the liaisons, and if it's, you know, not overly burdensome, it'll be incorporated. Otherwise, staff could let us know that it was a big problem. Yeah.
I was going to add, actually, I was thinking timestamps only for the videos, because it sounded like the audio meetings, it's going to be a problem to create a timestamp, unless maybe they just start a stopwatch and say it's approximately this time, right? Because nobody can actually go to it on an audio call, right? But a video, you can more easily fast forward to a point. So it really only makes sense to do it on a video call. So I would suggest that we just focus on the video meetings.
To the town manager.
I just want to make clear from the staff's behalf, we will do whatever the council desires. You know, transcripts are sometimes easier than summaries, but I have to put in front of the council, you really need to ask, what are we trying to do? The purpose of your council meeting is for the council to make decisions and to allow for input for the public. You don't allow unlimited public speakers for an unlimited time for a specific reason. This is a venue for them to be able to address the government, but you have to act on your decisions. And when you make a decision, the decision is usually codified. When we turn to the commissions, for the most part, are advisory bodies to the council. And so they're there to deliberate internally, take in input, and then provide some kind of direction that could be documented. Right now, they take motions and seconds, and it's documented in minutes in the form of an action. And if it's something that's not, it goes to the council on a weekly basis, and the council, through your agenda setting policy, can then put that forth. To go through and say, now you need to timestamp, whether it's the agenda items or the public speakers, I would ask, what goal are we trying to accomplish? If, you know, we're making it easier to go to a specific item at a specific commission meeting, but is the time to do that going to be balanced with the amount of benefit that the public's going to derive by doing that? Typically, what I would see is this. When an item has a 26 people that speak to an item, and you just have the listing of names or members of the public, or a total 26, that signals to me, well, that's probably a pretty meaty topic that I want to tune in on. So I will go in and tune in on it. I am not tuning in on 25 different items over the course of 2 months. And so I would ask, as you make your recommendations, can you consider what's the policy goal we're trying to accomplish? Is the workload associated with staff worth it? Or is there some alternative that accomplishes the goal? Because right now, we can provide transcriptions of every single meeting through AI tools that are not corrected, that would not necessarily require a lot of time. It's when you start to go through and try to become more precise or make it your actual official minutes that starts to take an exponentially higher level of effort.
Councilmember Hudis. Oh, and can we go to the town clerk first, and then we'll go to Councilmember Hudis?
I just wanted to clarify because the amendment was to provide summaries for non-actionable public meetings. So if that does go through, it would be helpful for staff to define what a summary would be, because it is, as we stated, challenging to try to determine what information should be included in a summary. And if that's the avenue council would like to go, I think verbatim might be a better option in terms of subjectivity and trying to determine the intent and what is important to be captured.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to think about. Yeah, Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Councilmember Rennie's, I'm not sure if it was an amendment or not, but I think I got one.
Thinking about an amendment, but I
Okay.
didn't have the precise wording or direction in it.
Okay. I mean, I do think it's a good idea to provide timestamp. And again, for now, I think only for the video recorded meetings. And so I would, I think it would be very helpful. I'm thinking about some very long planning commission meetings, as well as some council meetings that I've participated in and then forgotten when something was said, to be able to go back and review. And I do frequently review the videos of the meetings. So I agree with the town manager that there can be a tremendous amount of time consumed in producing summary minutes, and I think that should be reserved for really special cases, but it's offered as an option in the amendment that we have accepted and seconded. So what I wanted to go back to was the second idea for an amendment. If Councilmember Rennie would like, I could make an attempt at that. So that is that for all video recorded meetings, that time stamps of action items shall be provided on the minutes.
I accept that amendment.
I'll accept that. I assume you mean, okay, it looks like the clerk has a question. I would think that we're talking about a timestamp for the start of an item and a timestamp for any motions made? Is that what you mean by action?
Yes, that was what I meant.
So I'll just chime in. So I'm a little, I think actually going back to the town manager's question, I'm not sure what the goal is here, because I'm looking at I just pulled up, the town's YouTube page, and on the YouTube page, it displays very big at the bottom during each item what the item is, and the whatever we have on the agenda is listed for the entirety of the meeting of the item. So this is specifically a minutes change, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure who that's going to be used by, and so I think I don't know. Yeah, I don't know when this is going to be used. Yeah, please.
So the change would be that the time of the motion would be captured. That's not currently captured on the YouTube. The time of the item starting, yes, but the time of the motion is not captured.
And so it's the time the first motion is made. Like in this meeting, where would you put the timestamp?
It would be when the motion is made.
And then what happens if there's a substitute motion?
There would have to be a second timestamp because that's a valid motion.
Okay, so I would not support that. I think that's not a good use of time. Yeah, Councilmember Rennie?
No, I would argue that it is a good use of time, and it helps this our argument of transparency, because if somebody reads the minutes, they go, okay, there was this motion, and then there could have been 15 minutes discussion, and then somebody made a substitute motion, and they're like, oh, okay, I want to understand this better. Well, it's just, what were they really meaning, right? So you want to go to the video. I mean, this is the point, is so that you can now, instead of summarizing it with so much more that you can really understand, like in some cases, the motion is do staff's recommendation. Well, there may have been a lot more discussed around that. If with the timestamp, you can easily go to the video now to that spot and listen before and after the motion. Probably both. You're going to listen maybe before what led up to them making the motion, and then the discussion of the motion afterwards. And then 15 minutes later, somebody finally said a substitute motion, which is actually happening. I did that a couple weeks ago. We discussed something for a half hour, and I finally put in a substitute motion, which passed. So how do you make this more transparent? You make it easier for people to go read find and read all of that went on.
And I'll just chime in. I haven't heard from folks in the community that they're having a hard time finding when we're making motions and doing our business. And so I worry that we're solving a problem that doesn't exist. And I think that, again, the original impetus here was to make things easier. I'm hearing that it's maybe, this is less hard than summarizing. But I don't know that this makes sense for me. Yes, Vice Mayor Stowe.
I guess for me, especially if I go back and look at a planning commission meeting, there's a lot of times I see the start of the item. I'll fast forward to the start of the next item and then go backward until I can figure out what's going on. The best use for me, if I were a member of the public or a council member looking back at something, would not necessarily be every substitute motion, et cetera. It would be, when is the first motion made on an item? And then maybe a vote is taken, that's listed in the minutes. So you've got, at this time a motion was made, and then here was the vote. Now, and then the next item started. If I look and see there's a half an hour between when the motion was made and when the next item started, I will know there was probably a lot of discussion before the vote was taken or what happened. So I don't know. I think that's a lot of work for the clerks to decide, okay, a substitute motion was proposed, but was it accepted, and how many times do you mark it? So to me, it would be okay if each time a motion is made, and no matter what happens after that, when a vote is taken, that item ends. And if another motion is made, like say we broke it into 3 parts, each of those motions could be marked, but not each permutation combination of what happened to the first motion. I don't know. I mean, we're getting crazy.
I think we're getting so down in the operational. The council is literally talking about timestamps. I think we have to ask, if there's not clarity in the motions, then we need to stop and ensure, by doing what the clerk's done certain times, putting the motion on the board and making sure it's precise enough to what the council intended. The play-by-play of how we evolved to get to that ultimate motion could be beneficial in some respect, in some cases to some people, but the reality is, once the council acts, you only have the power and authority to act as the majority of the council. And so at the direction we're going, the approach, I don't have a problem with it. The approach I'm going to take is not to have staff do the minutes. I'm going to contract out the minutes as planning does, because they have a higher level of precision than we do even at the council minutes when they do the verbatim minutes for certain land use items. And it's pretty cost effective. So I'd rather just have an outside body do it and free up the capacity of staff to do it in the format that the council desires. But I'm concerned, we're talking about videoed meetings, which I think the clerk can correct me, tend to be the council meetings themselves. And so the council. And planning. And so we outlined in the agenda what effectively becomes headers on the video, and the headers are what staff go back and start doing the time links, so that when you're watching the video, you can click on a specific item and it takes you right to the location. And so if we want to get down to motions or public comments, which is something that's been discussed before, we would need to add that into the agendas themselves so that staff can connect them. because if it's not on the agenda, it will not show up on the platform that allows you to link to that specific one. That's a better approach than it would be to try to go through the video and get the timestamp and add it to the minutes. It'd just be easier to go to the video and say, planning land use item X, motion, click, and then now you can watch the video from that part forward.
Councilmember Hudis?
I think we're getting a little confused. So what we're talking about are actions of timestamping actions that would show up in the action minutes. We're not talking about public comments now. The motion was simply to timestamp actions that would show up in action minutes. So it would not be public comments. And if there were a motion that failed or a motion that didn't get a second, that would be noted in the action minutes, wouldn't it? Clerk, if I might say, wouldn't those things like that be noted in the action minutes?
If council directs staff to denote the timestamps for the motions, we can add those in where the motions are listed in the minutes. We do go back to the video to confirm the actual language of the motion. As I stated, we try to keep it as close to verbatim as possible. So we typically, that's part of the review process and the total time of preparing the minutes that we noted in the report is going back and reviewing the motion and capturing it verbatim as close as possible. But to your point, sometimes the motions can be lengthy and not as clear when they start and when they've completed. And I think some examples of that are when the town manager clarifies the motion and then council accepts that as the motion. So it would be helpful if you can provide clarity in terms of that situation. Would you want when the council member accepted the statement of the attorney or the town manager, or when the town manager or attorney made the actual statement? Because that's some of the stuff that we do in the action minutes to clarify. For example, when somebody does state, I move to approve what was stated by the town attorney, I then make a reference to exactly what the town attorney stated, just so that reference is included in the minutes. So if there could be clarity as to if you do want the timestamps, we can do that, but at which point would you want that denoted?
If I could respond, for me, it would be the timestamp of when the clarified motion was made before the council, just before the council votes on it. It doesn't have to backtrack. You can always do that by working backwards from that. But the actual motion, which is an action that we voted on, the timestamp for that, when it was, whatever point it was at where you captured it, would be adequate for me.
And would that just be a matter of noting that the time in the meeting just next to the motion?
Yes, that's all I'm asking. I think that was in my request.
Okay, and so to clarify, this would be then just in the minutes, not in the YouTube video. Okay, so we're not touching the YouTube. Okay, all right.
And if I may clarify, because what was just said is a little different than my understanding, it won't be every motion and every substitute. It is literally the last action that the council took that would be in the minutes, correct?
It's whenever there's a vote on a motion. Because that's what we do in the minutes right now is action minutes, there's a vote on a motion.
So yeah, to clarify, it would be anytime there was my understanding is anytime there's a motion made, whether it's a motion, an alternate motion, those would be captured. So I guess there would be clarity if there is a motion that fails, would that also be captured? Or a motion that was made and not seconded, would you want that captured as well?
Are those currently captured in action minutes?
Currently, if a motion's made and it's not seconded, we don't capture it. If a motion is made and failed, we do capture it.
For me, that would be adequate. It's whatever you're to timestamp whatever you're capturing in action minutes.
And then also to clarify, would it only be for the motions, or do you want a timestamp when staff starts their presentation of the item? Just the motion.
Just the motion. That's what I think my amendment was.
And then also to clarify further, the original statement was for meetings such as study sessions. To summarize, if you can provide a little clarity on what type of summary you're looking for would be helpful for staff.
So I think summary minutes are a term of art that's defined. I had asked the town manager earlier for a definition of that. It's something that other jurisdictions specify, and so I don't want to make it up on the fly, but I think that summary minutes are something that's defined, right?
There's no current definition of summary minutes. There's a variety of ways that people do that. So it would be in terms of, do you want summarization of just council discussion or staff presentations and discussion, or staff presentation, council discussion, and public comment?
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Risto.
I just want to clarify, I thought the amendment included not that will be done, but when there's a study session, there's the possibility to either that the council could ask for FAQs or summary minutes at a study session. That might never happen. It might happen sometimes. It was just leaving it open. So I would imagine that then at a given meeting, if we asked for summary minutes, we would define what that was at that point without having to define it now. But it was a may, it wasn't a shall.
Okay.
And we could also at that point, like the town manager suggested, just choose to do verbatim minutes, which would probably be easier than summary.
I just want to go back and talk a little bit about the history of how we got here. The council passed a 2001 resolution that stated we would only summarize the public hearing comments from the public. The council, in its practice, or the staff in its practice, would document verbal comments from the public in other areas on the minutes. In identifying that inconsistency, staff talked about the need to address that. So we brought it to the policy committee, and the policy committee, rather than implement the resolution as we're supposed to, which is what is in effect, we wanted to first at least advise the committee as to what was happening and determine, did you want to take a different direction? The committee took a direction to go even closer to action-only minutes and made that recommendation. And so now we're at the council, and we're now talking summary minutes, we're talking timestamps of every motion, which presumes that the discussion that occurred of the motion is not accurate in the minutes, and I think it's gone way far from the original intent, that I'd rather have an opportunity to discuss it further with the policy committee as to where are we trying to go, how are we trying to get there, or just recommend to the council we take no change whatsoever and we just stick to what we're doing right now. Because where we're at is it's a lot more work. We're going to be going through every video for every action and trying to document the timestamp, which I understand we want to know where in the video was that motion made. And the presumption is, why are the action minutes not accurate and sufficient enough for the council? I'd rather just stay at the council meeting and say, let's specify the motion in writing today, so that when we document in the minutes, it's very clear we've already established it here. There should be no dispute about what went in the minutes. I'm missing the intent behind what we're trying to accomplish, to ask staff to go and liaisons to go through, if there's a video, to document every motion, what timestamp in the video it is. I'm having a hard time understanding, if it's not to see the subsequent discussion of that, what the basis of that is.
Councilmember Rennie.
I'm going to have to say I disagree with the town manager. I fail to see why this is so much work. The staff already has to go through and verify the motion. They're at the video. They can read the line, type in 4 letters in addition connected to it. It doesn't need to be that complicated, and it's not about whether we believe staff wrote the motion correctly or not. It's so people can then go understand, what did the council members say about the motion? Why did they vote the way they did? It allows people more transparency to get to that, particularly for meetings that are 3 and 4 hours long. So, you know, I'm still not getting why this is a lot of extra work to do that.
But I think if you're following Rosenberg's rules, I can understand that, because the motion comes first and then the conversation comes subsequent to that. But up until recently, we've been having the conversation leading up to the motion. And so we're looking at the motion being time-stamped 1 minute and 30, let's say 1 hour and 30 minutes. What you're going to hear is a motion of X seconded by Y, and then potentially the vote. And so if the goal is the conversation, then you have to go back and timestamp where that conversation, if that's what the intent is. And so most of the motions we're going to have, most of the time, there isn't a relevance to go back and look at what was discussed, because we take 8 to 12 motions every meeting. But if that's what the council desires, that's what we'll have staff do, and we'll then see if it's as simple as it sounds.
Okay, could the clerk please clarify the motion about motions and minutes?
I'm trying to look that up. It looked like there was clarification when it was first made that it would be for the item and the motion, but then I asked for clarification and it sounded like it was just the motion. So I guess I just need clarification in terms of when the timestamp will be noted in the minutes, if it's only for the motion.
Councilmember Rennie.
So what makes the most sense to me, you know, we've talked about cases where, you know, somebody wants to make a motion, it wasn't quite clear, staff clarified it, and I think we came to the point that when we finally say, okay, this is the clarified motion, that's the point we should timestamp it.
So in this meeting, we would do that right now, correct?
Sure. You know, I don't think we really need to set the exact, we're just talking about staff is already in there clarifying these things. Pick a time so somebody can get close to the friggin' discussion. It shouldn't be this complicated.
Yes, Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, and I would like to just clarify that nothing in what I've suggested or Councilmember Rennie has accepted requires any additional items, any additional verbiage to be put into the minutes. It's simply to record the minutes as we do now with regarding motions, but to put a timestamp next to the motions, that's all. And with regard to timestamp for the items, it's unnecessary because the YouTube, as the mayor has pointed out, YouTube does provide that information already, so we don't need to put that in.
Okay, so my understanding of the motion then is to accept the policy committee's recommendation with the change that we will timestamp motions for council meetings and planning commission meetings? Is that the motion?
The motion said video meetings, which would also include the Finance Commission.
It's not videoed. It's just audioed.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then in that case, if we're not posting the video, it doesn't make any sense. So yes, planning and council based on the motion of video only.
Okay, and then the third piece is that we will prompt during study sessions about how we would like to document or not the content.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend you ask the clerk to do the verbatim motion for the board like we did the last time, just to make sure we get that accurately. Because I think the recommendation of the commission specifies to reaffirm and then has additional content.
Okay, sounds like the clerk might need a sec for that.
So if you want to take a 5-minute recess, we can go ahead and do that.
How long do you need? We're so close to the end of this meeting.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify because I know that there was discussion about the video only for the timestamps. So
We're not touching the video.
yes, yes, that was stated video only. But I think in terms of the type of meeting that would get the timestamp, so would it be better to clarify for council and planning commission?
Is the maker of the motion okay with that?
Yes.
Is the seconder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Take your time.
What I think captures. And I can read it. To accept staff's recommendation, except for non-action public meetings such as study sessions where summary minutes or frequently asked questions may be provided, and this will be discussed and decided at the meeting, and timestamps for action items shall be provided on the minutes for council and planning commission meetings.
Is that everyone's understanding of the motion? So,
Wendy, do you mind adding what the staff recommendation actually is from the staff report? So that's the exact motion that goes in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
and while the town clerk is doing that, I sincerely apologize, but I would like to make a friendly amendment to add summary minutes, frequently asked questions, or verbatim minutes, or verbatim.
I'm okay with that addition.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I would also like to have a semicolon before we're at the meeting, when you say "and" timestamps, because it sounds
It's a
like
different
we're
thing.
talking about study sessions unless we put a semicolon. Sorry, I'm not a grammar expert, but I think that's needed.
After the meeting? Yeah, after the word meeting. No. Sorry. I like how this was an item to make things easier for the town clerk's office, and here we are.
One more clarification. Since this is different than what our current resolution states, you still want me to bring back a resolution with this language?
I think so. I think that's necessary, yeah.
Okay. So then would I add that in as
So
well
I
to
think
bring back a
you would just
resolution?
copy what after the policy committee recommends in the conclusion section of the staff report, which says reaffirming the town's use of action-only minutes and modifying the current practices.
Okay, so I'll read it for the record. To accept staff's recommendation to reaffirm the use of action minutes for all meetings and modify the current practice for public comment to only identify speakers without summarizing the content of their remarks for both agenda items and verbal communication, except for non-action public meetings such as study sessions where summary minutes or frequently asked questions or verbatim may be provided. And this will be discussed and decided at the meeting, and timestamps for action item motions shall be provided on the minutes for council and planning commission meetings.
Okay, I think that's absolutely the motion we made. I think the only confusion is that it sounds like the accept is referring to public comment, which was not our intention. I mean, we all know what we're talking about, so maybe it's fine. Or maybe I'm wrong. Does that read clearly to folks?
Two separate sentences, like one concept and then however, non-action public
Yes,
meetings.
nice. The word however is perfect. Okay. All right. Yeah, go. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm thinking is we have three things here, and the third item where we talk about timestamp relates to the first part of the motion. And so I think that middle part where we discuss study sessions should be a last separate sentence, and the timestamp and action item things should immediately follow. Yep. Because those go together. And then the study session can stand on its own.
And do we still want our Rennie colon after communication? Semicolon. Before the words and time. I'm so sorry. All right, Town Clerk, do you want to read it one more time and then we'll take a vote?
Sure. To accept staff's recommendation to reaffirm the use of action minutes for all meetings and modify the current practice for public comment to only identify speakers without summarizing the content of their remarks for both agenda items and verbal communication, and timestamp for action item motions. That sounds awkward.
Yeah, do you want Councilmember Hudis?
Suggest making that a separate sentence. Just put a period after communication and just say timestamps.
Timestamps. Okay. Disappointing. Timestamps for action item motions shall be provided on the minutes for council and planning commission meetings. However, non-action public meetings such as study sessions where summary minutes, frequently asked questions, or verbatim may be provided, and this will be discussed and decided at the meeting. Okay.
And one more clarifying point.
Please. But it's the last one.
This language is this the intent for this language to be incorporated in the resolution that will be brought back for adoption to replace the prior resolution?
Correct. I think the intentions of this language, I don't think it has to be verbatim in the resolution. I think you can create the resolution as it makes sense.
Okay, and then
In coordination with
attorney,
the town
do they
attorney.
need to direct staff to bring back the resolution, or is this adequate?
This is adequate.
All right. We are very clear on our motion. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. All right. We will now move very quickly to council matters, and we'll start with Councilmember Rennie.
Since our last council meeting, I attended the Silicon Valley Risk Oversight Committee meeting. I was sick, so I missed a couple things. I also was happy to attend The Meadows, which they changed their name to something I've already forgotten, I guess sort of celebration of moving on to their next step and moving that project forward.
Councilmember Hudis.
Thank you. Let's see, on February 19, I attended a meeting of the Wildfire Advisory Group, and we had a presentation from Marin County, and our emergency manager, Chris Todd, participated in that meeting. We learned a tremendous amount about how a JPA could be put in place to do things on a regional basis, as well as other actions that they've taken in Marin that have created really a 5-year sustained effort on improving their wildfire positions. Let's see, I participated in a group discussing the community center on the 24th, and on the 26th, I participated in the Emergency Operations Area Council, which reviewed actions from the Super Bowl and planning for the World Cup. And then I attended the Fresco meeting of the at Opelia, and I participated in the Community Health and Senior Services Commission meeting. And then on the 27th, I participated in the State of the Valley presentation that provided a great deal of perspective and statistics on what's happening in the Valley. And I think at some point when we do strategic planning, it might be useful to provide a summary of that information. That's all.
Vice Mayor Risto.
Thank you. On Wednesday, February 18th, I was privileged to visit Verkada headquarters with our police chief, our 2 captains, IT and Parks and Public Works. And Verkada provides some of the cameras that the town uses in conjunction with the Axon capabilities. So we got a presentation on possible future products, a discussion of what security measures the town would be looking for, and it was just really interesting to see the kind of work they're doing. On the 22nd, I attended Congressman Sam Liccardo's press conference in Mountain View. I think our mayor will have more to say about it, where he spoke about money that was received. Congressman Liccardo has been very successful in getting federal funding for a variety of local projects, including affordable housing in Mountain View and for West Valley Community Services. On Tuesday, the 24th, I actually was at the Terraces of Los Gatos, where our town attorney was there as an invited speaker to talk about the Brown Act and public records requests. There's a number of very thoughtful, intelligent, and curious residents there, and I think Gabrielle could teach a course on the Brown Act, so it was awesome. On the 26th, I attended the Fresco Los Gatos reception, so that is the rebuild of the Meadows under a new name. On the 26th, the mayor and I and town manager attended a tour of the Rinconada water treatment plant, and it's a really big water treatment plant up on Moore Avenue in Los Gatos. I've been attending the quarterly update meetings to the residents up there and hearing about, it's a multi-year, I think it's a 6-year program where the entire water treatment plant is being rebuilt, but because there is no redundancy, there's not another treatment plant, each section of it has to be first built, and then that part can be taken offline, then the next part. So it's very complicated, but it's an expansion and increased resiliency for our water. And as pretty much the only utility that we would die without, it's good to have safe drinking water. On the 27th, I also attended Joint Venture Silicon Valley State of the Valley and this annual update of all indicators of the Valley: job growth, economic disparity, increasing inaffordability of housing, immigration, migration. It's an amazing amount of work that's done. And if anybody Googles Joint Venture Silicon Valley, you can find this with the dashboard and with all the indicators. And I agree with Councilmember Hudes, some of that information might come in handy as we look at not only our strategic priorities, but in a couple of years when we have to work on our next housing element. And then that evening, I attended a Ramadan dinner at the West Valley Muslim Association. I think it's my 4th year going. And this time it was for friends and neighbors. And it was a friendly opportunity to be with our neighbors as they broke an all-day fast. I would say I had some resolve to try not to drink water or eat food from sunrise to sunset, and I'm just not cut out for that. But the food was delicious and the atmosphere was friendly. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. On February 19th, I participated in a meeting of the Resident Wildfire Advisory Group, and we received an excellent presentation as referenced by Councilmember Hudes. On February 24th, I participated in a meeting of the Council Policy Committee, which was discussing what we discussed tonight for a much longer time. And I also attended the fresco reception at Opilia as referenced by my fellow council members.
Thank you. I met with the new rabbi of Shir Hadash in Los Gatos, Rabbi Rafi. He was just installed a couple weeks ago. Was very, very impressed with him. I think he's going to be a great addition to that synagogue. As the vice mayor said, I spoke at the Sam Liccardo press conference where we announced $200,000 that was that's going to be received by West Valley Community Services to provide basically a mobile navigation van to Los Gatos, Campbell, Cupertino, and Saratoga and Monte Sereno for homelessness services. And the sort of vision there is that we don't right now have the time, money, space, or will to build a sort of permanent navigation center somewhere, and so this is the next best way to do that. One thing that's important to recognize on that is that there will be more money needed for that to actually get that done. I visited Automobuild, our toy store in Los Gatos, and got to meet and interview Tater Tot the capybara, which was very, very cool. There were over 200 people in line to meet this capybara at the toy store. It was very, very sweet. It was a nice little event. I participated in a few meetings with the Chamber of Commerce. One I'll highlight is I did a mayor's roundtable with the Chamber of Commerce where about 30 local business owners came in, and we discussed issues going on in the town. The town manager was nice enough to provide backup there and had a very good discussion about the business environment in town. Overall, it seems like folks are very happy with things going on in town, though I think we will have 1 or 2 requests from the business owners this budget cycle. I visited the Mariposa Montessori School in Los Gatos, which is a wonderful little school. Got to meet some of the students there and some of the staff and administrators, also the landlords who were just so happy to have them. So that was very sweet. The town manager and I met with some of the folks from Stanford's government relations team to discuss the Stanford Next Gen general use permit update. So Stanford is bringing forward a general use permit update, which is a pretty significant. They want to basically expand their services and footprint a bit. And so while Los Gatos doesn't have isn't adjacent to the Stanford campus, we do have a variety of Stanford facilities in Los Gatos and a lot of alumni and residents who are involved with the university. So that'll be coming forward in a few months, and there will be listening sessions for our residents to attend. I also attended the Fresco and the Rinconada water treatment plant and the meeting of the policy committee. To the town manager.
I always appreciate going after the council since you've already highlighted all the items I was going to speak to, so I'll save the time and pass it on to the town attorney.
And I will report that the town council met in closed session earlier this evening to discuss existing litigation. It's the case of Los Gatos versus Aria Properties et al. The meeting was pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, and there's no reportable action.
Thank you very much. With that, this meeting is adjourned.